Have you ever caught yourself reacting impulsively, letting something small take over your mind and ruin your day? Anger, frustration, anxiety, these emotions can feel uncontrollable, especially in such a fast-paced world full of external pressures. But what if I told you there's a way to live with more serenity, no matter what happens around you? Imagine being able to navigate life's turbulence with a calm mind, not letting anything or anyone take your peace. This isn't just a distant dream, it's possible, and Stoicism, an ancient philosophy, offers the tools for it. Philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca left us timeless lessons that, when applied, can completely transform the way we live. Today, I'll share with you 7 powerful Stoic methods to master your emotions and achieve lasting emotional balance. These methods aren't just abstract concepts, but practices you can start applying right away to take control of your life and protect your inner peace. So, if you're ready for this transformation, stick with me, and let's explore how these lessons can change your life. Get ready, because what you're about to discover could be the start of a new chapter in your emotional journey. Let's go. Method 1. Embrace life's disposition. One of the fundamental practices of Stoicism teaches us to accept situations as they are, without resistance or desire for things to be different. This kind of acceptance isn't passive, but a way of deeply understanding that life, in its essence, is made up of events beyond our control. The sincere acceptance of life's situations allows us to live in harmony with the nature of things, without being dominated by the desire to alter or control the uncontrollable. Instead of fighting reality, the Stoic invites us to embrace it with serenity. This doesn't mean resignation, but rather the understanding that resistance only brings suffering. True freedom lies in accepting the present and moving forward with a calm mind, ready to face any challenge. Acceptance without resistance is one of the most powerful principles of Stoicism. When we resist something, whether a situation or an emotion, we create an internal struggle that only fuels suffering. This resistance can manifest in various forms, such as anger, frustration, or even anxiety. However, the sincere acceptance that things happen as they should frees us from this constant battle. Resistance, in Stoic terms, is what prevents us from seeing situations clearly and objectively. By embracing the disposition to accept what happens to us, we create more space to act with wisdom and serenity, no matter the circumstances. This doesn't mean we should agree with everything that happens, but we should recognize that many things are beyond our control, and therefore, our inner peace depends on our ability to accept these things as part of life's journey. This acceptance can be practiced in everyday situations, which often throw us off emotionally. Take, for example, the simple task of washing dishes. For many people, it's a monotonous and irritating task, something that has to be done. However, Stoicism teaches us to change our perspective. Instead of thinking, "I have to wash the dishes," we can shift to, "I choose to wash the dishes." This transforms an apparently insignificant task into an opportunity to practice acceptance and disposition. Similarly, traffic, which can be a source of frustration and impatience, is another opportunity to practice acceptance. Traffic isn't something we can control, but our reaction to it is within our responsibility. Instead of fighting it, we can accept that it's part of the day and use this time to reflect or simply breathe deeply, maintaining our serenity. Defining purpose and life vision is essential for effectively practicing life's disposition. When we have a clear purpose, the difficulties and challenges of everyday life gain new meaning. By defining our life vision, we can see that every moment, every action is part of a greater whole. Instead of focusing only on immediate tasks or problems, we can view life from a broader, deeper perspective. This vision allows us to realize that our actions, even the simplest ones, have a purpose. Washing dishes, facing traffic, or any other daily activity can be an expression of this greater purpose, a means of keeping our minds in balance and continuing our journey of self-discovery. The key is living with the awareness that all actions are choices, and each one contributes to our evolution. Living with a greater vision helps us distinguish between "I have to" and "I choose." The difference between these two phrases is powerful. The first, "I have to," carries a sense of obligation and resistance, as if it's something imposed. "I choose," on the other hand, reflects an attitude of freedom and willingness. When we choose our actions, even the simplest ones, we give them greater meaning, and thus, they become a reflection of our life's purpose. By adopting the view that we're choosing, rather than being forced, our perspective on life completely changes. Every choice, even the most routine, becomes an opportunity to exercise our autonomy and wisdom, and acceptance of situations becomes stronger. Stoicism teaches us that, regardless of the circumstances, we can always choose our response, our attitude toward what happens. Acceptance then becomes not only a practice for dealing with external situations, but also a way to achieve self-improvement. By accepting what we cannot change, we develop the ability to change what is within our control, our attitudes, emotions, and reactions. This is the true path to personal transformation. Instead of fighting difficulties, we can use them as tools for growth. Every challenge, every obstacle is an opportunity to practice acceptance and strengthen our character. By accepting life's difficulties, we are, in fact, overcoming our own limits and evolving toward a wiser, more serene version of ourselves. Learning from criticism and mistakes is an essential part of this journey. Stoicism teaches us to see criticism not as personal attacks, but as opportunities for learning. When someone criticizes us, instead of reacting defensively, we can reflect on the criticism and ask ourselves what we can learn from it. Similarly, mistakes are not failures, but valuable lessons. Every mistake is a chance to correct our course and move forward with more wisdom. Accepting our own mistakes and the criticism from others allows us to keep growing, without getting lost in the negative emotions these experiences can generate. Instead of feeling shame or frustration, we can use each mistake as a foundation to become stronger and more self-compassionate. The journey of embracing disposition is, therefore, a path of self-discovery and self-improvement. By practicing acceptance of life's situations, choosing our reactions, and learning from criticism and mistakes, we are constantly evolving. This journey is neither linear nor easy, but it is deeply transformative. It allows us to live in accordance with our true nature, in harmony with what is, and frees us from the constant struggle against what we cannot control. By embracing disposition, we embrace life with all it offers, with its ups and downs, its beauty and its difficulties, always in search of a greater purpose. Method 2. Stop judging others. Judging others has the power to generate anger and frustration, and this is something we all experience at some point. When we judge, we create a division between ourselves and others, a line of separation that makes us feel superior or inferior, right or wrong. Judgment fuels our emotions in a negative way, because when we identify something we don't like in others, we end up creating an impulsive emotional reaction. This reaction often prevents us from seeing the situation clearly and acting wisely. Anger, frustration, and impatience arise because, deep down, we believe people should act differently than they choose to. However, Stoicism teaches us that by focusing on judging, we are allowing other people's behavior to control our emotions. This is one of the reasons judgments can be harmful to our inner peace. The human tendency to judge quickly is almost an automatic reaction when we encounter a person or situation. The brain seeks to categorize and form instant opinions to handle the complexity of interactions. However, Stoicism warns us of the danger of acting impulsively, without adequate reflection. Judging is a way of reacting without considering the full context, and often without understanding what motivated a particular action. Instead of seeking to understand, we project our own values, which prevents genuine analysis and keeps us from true understanding. This tendency to judge directly affects our inner peace. Every judgment generates emotions like anger, frustration, or sadness, which create internal disturbances and take us away from serenity. Stoicism teaches us that inner peace depends on our ability to remain calm in the face of what happens around us. When we allow ourselves to be dominated by judgments, we give up our emotional control to external factors, compromising our tranquility. Therefore, letting go of judgment is a way to regain control over our reactions and ensure that our peace does not depend on others' behavior. Everyday examples of judgment show how common this practice is. When someone acts impatiently or rudely, our initial reaction is to judge them as arrogant or rude. However, upon reflection, we may realize that they could be dealing with personal struggles, pressures, or a difficult day. Instead of labeling them negatively, we can understand that their attitude is a response to circumstances, not a definitive reflection of their personality. Another example would be when we see someone doing something differently than we do, like eating in a way we consider inappropriate. Instead of judging, we can open our minds to the possibility that there are different ways to do things, all equally valid. The key to seeing people more compassionately is recognizing that, just like us, they have their own stories, challenges, and motivations. Instead of judging momentary actions or appearances, Stoicism teaches us to practice empathy. Every person is on a unique journey, and often what we see externally is only the tip of the iceberg. True understanding comes when we look beyond external actions and seek to understand what motivates them. This empathy frees us from the cycle of judgment, allowing us to cultivate respect and acceptance for human imperfections, which makes our interactions more harmonious. The Stoic concept of not allowing others to control our emotions is central to emotional freedom. When we judge, we are allowing the behavior of others to determine our peace of mind. Stoic philosophy teaches us to be independent of others' actions, maintaining our serenity regardless of what they do. This doesn't mean ignoring or justifying behaviors, but recognizing that our peace should not depend on the choices of others. By adopting this perspective, we can preserve our tranquility and act more wisely and balanced. Empathy should replace judgment. When we practice empathy, we are able to recognize the difficulties others face without seeing their actions merely as criticisms to be made. This doesn't mean accepting harmful behaviors, but viewing them with compassion and seeking more constructive responses. Empathy helps us act more wisely and with less judgment, creating an environment of mutual respect in our relationships. Questioning and changing our perspective is essential to abandoning judgment. Whenever we feel the urge to judge, we can reflect on what we really know about the situation or the person. Is there something we don't know? Are we being influenced by biases? Stoicism teaches us to pause and reflect, adopting a broader view before forming an opinion. This constant process of questioning helps cultivate a more balanced and realistic perspective, moving us away from hasty judgment. Letting go of judgment brings emotional freedom. The constant habit of judging creates a cycle of dissatisfaction and prevents us from living in peace. By freeing ourselves from this practice, we create space for self-control and serenity. True emotional freedom arises when we recognize that we don't need others' actions to be happy or calm. By focusing on our responses and practicing empathy, we open the doors to a life of greater inner and outer harmony. Method 3. Let go of control. Letting go of control is a deep and liberating practice that Stoicism teaches us. Frustration and anger often arise when we expect things or people to behave in a specific way. When these expectations are not met, we face an internal conflict, a feeling of powerlessness that often leads to emotional strain. The tendency to want to control others' behavior or the outcome of external situations is rooted in our desire for security and predictability. However, Stoicism teaches us that control is an illusion. We cannot control others or what happens outside of us, but we can control how we respond to these events. By releasing this desire for control, we also release the emotional tension it creates. The Stoic concept of detachment is deeply connected to the idea of accepting what we cannot control. Detachment is not indifference or resignation, but the understanding that there are aspects of life beyond our ability to manipulate. The unpredictable nature of things makes it impossible to control everything around us, and trying to force control over the uncontrollable leads to suffering. Detachment involves accepting this reality and living in harmony with the flow of life, without resisting what is. This doesn't mean abandoning the pursuit of improvement, but focusing on what is within our reach and accepting what we cannot change. Detachment helps release unrealistic expectations, thus preventing frustration when things don't go as we expect. A clear example of detachment is when we encounter everyday situations, like traffic. It's natural to feel frustration and impatience during a traffic jam, but Stoic philosophy teaches us that the only control we have is over our reaction. We cannot change the flow of cars or the behavior of drivers, but we can choose how to respond to the situation. Instead of getting upset, we can choose to use the time to reflect, practice patience, or relax. By accepting that traffic is beyond our control, we gain inner peace because the key is in how we react to what we can't control, not in trying to control it. Focusing on what we can control is the foundation of a more serene life. Stoicism teaches us to distinguish between what is within our reach and what is not. We can control our emotions, thoughts, and actions, but not others' behavior or external circumstances. By directing our energy toward what we can control, we gain personal power and tranquility. Our emotions can be shaped by our perceptions and reactions, and by controlling them, we can avoid being thrown off balance by external situations. The secret is not to waste energy trying to control the uncontrollable, but to focus on how we respond to what happens to us. The practice of premeditatio malorum, anticipation of adversity, is a powerful Stoic technique for letting go of control. It involves rationally visualizing the possible challenges we may face, mentally preparing for them. By anticipating difficulties, we can free ourselves from surprise and distress when they occur. This habit teaches us to accept adversity in advance, allowing us to act calmly without resisting what could go wrong. Premeditatio malorum is not about living in fear, but about being emotionally prepared to face whatever comes, without despairing. The sense of peace that arises from letting go of control is unmatched. When we stop fighting against situations and people, we accept that many things are beyond our reach, creating space for tranquility and freedom. Inner peace does not depend on controlling everything around us, but on how we choose to react to events. By letting go of the desire to control the uncontrollable, we stop being slaves to our expectations and external circumstances. Peace arises from accepting that life follows its course, and by focusing on our response, behavior, and actions, we can live with serenity, regardless of what happens around us. Ultimately, the practice of detachment teaches us to live with more harmony and less resistance. Focusing on what we can control and accepting what we cannot provides us with emotional freedom and lasting peace. Detachment and the acceptance of the uncontrollable are not signs of weakness, but of wisdom. They help us live with more clarity, reduce stress, and face adversities with balance. By practicing detachment, we free ourselves from the weight of expectations and frustrations, allowing life to flow more naturally and with less tension. Method 4. Embrace imperfection in the world. Embracing imperfection in the world is one of the deepest lessons Stoicism offers us. We live in a society that often pushes us toward perfection. We strive for the perfect body, the perfect job, the perfect relationship. However, this pursuit of perfection is an illusion that, besides being unattainable, leads to negative emotional consequences. The expectation that everything should be perfect leads to frustration, anxiety, and even anger when things don't go as planned. Perfection, as Stoicism teaches us, is unrealistic, and believing in it keeps us trapped in a cycle of constant dissatisfaction. By accepting that imperfection is part of life's nature, we begin to release the emotional weight of the endless search for the ideal. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, teaches us that life's events are not inherently good or bad. What truly matters is how we judge them. For him, our reaction to situations defines whether they will be sources of suffering or opportunities for learning. When something doesn't go as expected, the immediate tendency is to see it as a failure. However, Epictetus invites us to change this perspective. Instead of labeling events as negative, we can accept them as a natural part of the human experience. This is one of the cornerstones of Stoicism. We cannot control events, but we can control how we interpret and react to them. By embracing the imperfection of the world, we stop seeing failures as disasters and start viewing them as opportunities to practice virtue. A clear example of this can be seen in a presentation that doesn't go as planned. If you prepared well, but the presentation wasn't well received, the initial reaction might be frustration or disappointment. However, Stoic philosophy teaches us that instead of holding on to these negative feelings, we should accept imperfection as part of any human effort. We can reflect on what went wrong, learn from the experience, and move forward wiser. Imperfection thus becomes an opportunity for growth, as it allows us to practice patience and self-awareness. The goal is not to seek perfection, but to improve continuously and learn from challenges. This process of acceptance strengthens our resilience, making us better equipped to deal with adversities. Resilience in the face of imperfection is an essential trait of Stoicism. Stoics do not seek to eliminate difficulties or expect a perfect world. On the contrary, they learn to face them with balance and serenity. When we understand that imperfection is an inevitable part of life, we can accept it with more calm. Resilience is not about ignoring pain or suffering, but having the ability to rise after each fall, learn from mistakes, and move forward with a calm mind. For Stoics, difficulties are not obstacles but opportunities to practice virtues such as courage, wisdom, and temperance. By cultivating resilience, we are better able to handle life's ups and downs and find peace, even in moments of chaos. Imperfection is also an opportunity to develop patience and compassion. When we accept that not everything will be perfect, we can be more patient with ourselves and others. The unrealistic expectation that everything and everyone must be perfect only leads to constant frustration. By embracing imperfection, we become more understanding. If someone makes a mistake, instead of reacting with anger or judgment, we can offer support. Similarly, when we make our own mistakes, we can be kinder to ourselves, using failures as an opportunity for growth, not as a reason to punish ourselves. The patience and compassion cultivated in the face of imperfection connect us to our shared humanity, creating more harmonious relationships. Empathy, in this context, becomes an essential skill for dealing with imperfection. By practicing empathy, we can understand others' motivations and challenges rather than judging their flaws. Instead of seeing others as sources of frustration, we begin to see them as human beings who, like us, face difficulties and make mistakes. Empathy allows us to accept others' imperfection without it causing anger or distancing. It strengthens communication and creates space for mutual understanding. By being empathetic, we do not expect others to be perfect, but we accept their imperfections as part of what makes them unique and valuable, creating deeper relationships. Finally, embracing imperfection does not mean giving up on our goals or expectations, but understanding that the path to well-being and tranquility does not lie in the endless pursuit of a perfect world. On the contrary, true peace comes from accepting that life, with all its complexity, is naturally imperfect. Stoicism teaches us to see imperfection as an opportunity for growth and a fertile ground for practicing the virtues that make us more balanced and complete. By accepting imperfection, we begin to live more lightly, wisely, and at peace with ourselves and others. Are you enjoying the video? It's great that you've made it this far. Show us you're ready to change and live with more serenity and balance. Comment below with the phrase, "I'm ready for the transformation," and share your thoughts and insights on what resonated with you. Let's grow together. Now back to what matters. Method 5. Take responsibility for your feelings. Taking responsibility for our feelings is one of the keys to living an emotionally balanced and peaceful life. Often we believe that our emotions are automatic reactions to external events, as if we are victims of circumstances or the actions of others. However, Stoic philosophy teaches us that we have the power to choose how we react to any situation, regardless of what's happening around us. This choice is one of the foundations of emotional control, and it's what allows us to maintain our inner peace, even amidst chaos. One of the most powerful teachings from the Stoics is the choice to control our emotions in the face of external circumstances. The fact that something outside of us triggers an emotional reaction doesn't mean we have to let that emotion take control. If someone hurts us with words or actions, we have the power to decide whether we will react with anger, sadness, or frustration, or if we will remain calm and rational. Emotion is not an obligation, but a response we can control. For example, if someone cuts in line at a supermarket, the initial reaction may be irritation. However, by choosing to take responsibility for our feelings, we can decide not to let this incident affect our emotional balance. Instead of giving in to anger, we can take a deep breath, observe the situation clearly, and move forward without letting it steal our peace. The words and actions of others don't have to dictate our emotions. This doesn't mean ignoring inappropriate behavior, but understanding that true strength lies in how we choose to react. When someone offends us, we can choose to feel offended, but we can also choose not to let it affect us emotionally. Control over our reactions is essential to preserve our serenity and prevent others' actions from putting us in a state of suffering. Epictetus, one of the main Stoic philosophers, states that no one can offend us without our consent, meaning negative emotions only have power over us if we allow them. By maintaining responsibility for our emotions, we avoid becoming slaves to others' behavior and preserve our emotional autonomy. Marcus Aurelius, another Stoic philosopher, emphasized the importance of controlling the mind for a peaceful life. He believed that the human mind has the power to control emotions, and that by keeping a disciplined mind, we face difficulties with more wisdom and balance. He suggested reflecting on our reactions and not allowing ourselves to be driven by momentary impulses. For Marcus Aurelius, the mind is a field that must be constantly monitored to ensure we don't stray from the path of virtue and inner peace. By choosing how to react to any situation, we are exercising control over our mind, which helps us live with more serenity and less reactivity. One valuable Stoic practice is the pause before reacting. Often, we are overtaken by intense emotions like anger or frustration, and our immediate response is to act without thinking. However, Stoics teach us to practice a pause, a moment of reflection between the external trigger and our internal reaction. This pause allows us to observe the situation objectively and choose a calmer, more rational response. Instead of reacting impulsively, we can take a deep breath and reflect on whether the emotional response truly contributes to our well-being. This practice helps us avoid impulsive decisions that could lead to regrets and allows us to remain calm in challenging situations. Keeping an emotional journal is an effective tool for self-awareness and emotional discipline. Writing about feelings and situations that affect us helps us understand our reactions and emotional patterns better. By recording moments of anger, sadness, or frustration, we can reflect on the causes of those emotions and analyze whether our reactions were proportional to the situation. This exercise helps us identify emotional triggers and, over time, learn to handle them more effectively. An emotional journal fosters self-awareness and the discipline needed to maintain control over our feelings, while also providing a practical way to review our emotional progress. Taking responsibility for our emotions is crucial for protecting our inner peace. When we understand that we are the only ones responsible for our emotional reactions, we stop blaming the outside world for our suffering and start taking control over our happiness and tranquility. This doesn't mean denying emotions, but acknowledging them and choosing how to deal with them. We can accept that we feel anger or sadness in certain situations, but we can also choose not to let those emotions consume us. By taking responsibility for our feelings, we gain power over our emotional life, and consequently, the quality of our experience. Inner peace comes from the ability to maintain serenity in the face of adversity, and from understanding that our happiness doesn't depend on others or circumstances, but on how we choose to react to them. In summary, taking responsibility for our feelings is crucial for achieving an emotionally balanced life. By understanding that our emotions are choices, we can cultivate the calm, resilience, and wisdom needed to live in harmony with the world around us. The practice of pausing before reacting, reflecting on our feelings, and cultivating emotional discipline through tools like journaling helps us maintain control of our inner peace. By doing this, we become stronger, freer, and able to live with serenity, regardless of external circumstances. Method 6. The art of non-reaction. The art of non-reaction is one of the most powerful principles taught by Stoic philosophers, who emphasize the importance of maintaining inner control regardless of external situations. We live in a world full of emotional stimuli, and often our automatic reactions lead us to act impulsively, exacerbating conflicts and compromising our inner peace. Non-reaction, at its core, is a practice of conscious choice, where we decide not to give in to the impulse to react automatically or emotionally unbalanced. The moment of calm is key to emotional control in stressful or conflict-filled situations. In tense moments, the first reaction is often impulsive, driven by anger or frustration. However, the ability to remain calm in that initial moment allows the individual to take control of the situation, choosing a more rational and measured response. True power lies not in reacting impulsively, but in taking a step back, recognizing that we have the ability to choose how to respond. Seneca, one of the key Stoic philosophers, teaches that anger is a disease of the mind and suggests that the best way to deal with it is to not react. When we react impulsively, we lose our mental clarity and harm ourselves and others. By taking a moment to breathe and reflect, we can better assess the situation and respond with more wisdom and serenity. This distance from our emotions allows us to see the situation more clearly, without the distortion of anger or ego. The practice of delaying our response is a powerful tool in the art of non-reaction. When something provokes us, the initial impulse may be to react with anger. However, by delaying that response even for a few seconds, we give ourselves the chance to reflect on the situation with more calm, avoiding exaggerated reactions and regrets. Non-reaction is not indifference, but a conscious choice to not let ourselves be dominated by momentary emotions. Silence also plays a central role in non-reaction. Often, the impulse is to respond or defend our opinions, but silence can be a form of preservation and inner strength. By choosing not to retaliate immediately, we avoid escalating conflicts and protect our inner peace. Silence conveys calm, control, and discernment, allowing us to maintain serenity in the face of external provocations. The parable of the donkey illustrates the impact of a negative reaction. When stoned by a man, the donkey doesn't react with anger or run away, but simply lets the stones hit him. When the man realizes his actions have no effect, he gives up. The lesson here is that, often, the greatest enemy of inner peace is our emotional response. If we don't react to provocations, the conflict tends to dissipate on its own. Not reacting neutralizes negativity without feeding it. Silence, therefore, is not passivity but an active choice to maintain control over the mind and heart, preserving our emotional energy. By not reacting automatically, we prevent our inner peace from being drained by unnecessary situations. Another useful metaphor for understanding non-reaction is that of fire. When we feed anger with our impulsive reactions, we are adding more fuel to the flame. However, if we choose not to react, the anger loses its strength and eventually burns out. Anger is like fire. If we don't feed it, it extinguishes itself. By not reacting, we stop the cycle of anger from continuing, allowing the emotion to dissipate. Introspection is also essential for non-reaction. By reflecting on what causes us anger, we can better understand our emotional triggers and learn to deal with them more effectively. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, suggests that we should examine our reactions and learn from them. Asking ourselves, "Why did this bother me?" helps us understand our perceptions and expectations, leading to more wisdom and self-awareness. For Marcus Aurelius, controlling emotional reactions is not about suppressing emotions, but about managing them with discernment and wisdom. Non-reaction is a way of discerning what truly deserves our attention. Often, anger and frustration arise when we get involved in small provocations or disputes. By choosing not to react, we can assess whether the situation truly deserves our emotional energy, or if it's wiser to simply let it pass. The practice of non-reaction, therefore, is a way to protect our inner peace and focus on what truly matters. In summary, the art of non-reaction is an ongoing exercise in self-control, discernment, and wisdom. By choosing not to react immediately, we can preserve our inner peace and make wiser, more balanced decisions. The practice of silence, introspection, and delaying our response are powerful tools for dealing with emotional adversities more rationally and serenely. By cultivating the art of non-reaction, we become more resilient, wise, and capable of living in harmony with the world around us. Method 7. Find joy in altruism. Finding joy in altruism is one of the fundamental pillars of Stoicism, which teaches us to seek happiness not in material things or impulsive emotional reactions, but in actions aimed at the well-being of others and caring for those around us. The act of helping without expecting anything in return brings an internal transformation that frees the individual from the prison of selfishness and destructive reactions, allowing them to live with more serenity and harmony. Internal transformation is a crucial process that occurs when we avoid impulsive reactions like anger or resentment. When we react impulsively, we feed negative emotions that become destructive, harming our inner peace and relationships. Instead of reacting with impatience or frustration, altruism teaches us to practice emotional detachment and care for others without being affected by external circumstances. This creates a cycle of tranquility that benefits both our well-being and that of those around us. One of the most powerful ways to protect our inner peace and achieve a fulfilling and serene life is through forgiveness. Rather than holding on to offenses and resentments, the act of forgiving frees our minds from negative thoughts, allowing us to live with more lightness and compassion. Forgiving doesn't mean justifying wrong actions or forgetting what happened, but choosing to release the emotional energy that ties us to the past, preventing us from living fully in the present. As Seneca teaches us, it's not what happens to us, but how we react to what happens that defines our experience. Forgiveness, therefore, is a way to take control of our emotional response, replacing anger with a constructive attitude. Moreover, forgiveness is an act of kindness that also benefits the person doing the forgiving. By forgiving others, we release our minds from the chains of bitterness, creating space for more peace and joy. This process reflects true altruism, as by forgiving, we show compassion both for others and for ourselves. Forgiving is often the quickest way to restore harmony in our relationships, whether at work or in our personal lives. By letting go of the weight of resentment, we renew our interactions and create deeper, healthier connections. Anger often arises from the expectations we create about others in the world. When things don't go as we expect, we feel a sense of injustice, which translates into anger and frustration. By freeing ourselves from these rigid expectations, we can understand that not everything is under our control, and that many of others' reactions are the result of their own histories. This understanding allows us to respond with more empathy and less hostility, contributing to our emotional freedom. True liberation comes when we recognize that we can live without controlling the behavior of others, because our reactions are choices, not automatic reflexes. Forgiveness and spiritual freedom are deeply connected in Stoic practice. For Stoics, forgiveness is not just an act towards others, but a form of self-liberation. By forgiving, we stop carrying the weight of grievances and expectations, creating space for a lighter and more centered life. As Epictetus teaches us, it's not what happens to us, but how we handle what happens that makes the difference. Forgiveness is an application of this daily philosophy, freeing us from the chains of anger and resentment and allowing for a more authentic and peaceful life. The practice of helping others without expecting anything in return is an ongoing exercise in generosity and altruism. When we offer something to others, whether time, attention, or resources, without expecting reciprocation, we cultivate a spirit of true kindness. Stoicism teaches us that true happiness doesn't come from accumulation or the relentless pursuit of external rewards, but from the inner satisfaction of knowing we are contributing to others' well-being. By doing good selflessly, we enrich our own spirit and find joy in the simplicity of the altruistic act. Epictetus, with his practical wisdom, reminds us that emotional control is key to achieving true freedom. He teaches us that by controlling our reactions, we can transcend the limitations imposed by external circumstances, finding spiritual freedom that allows us to live with dignity and serenity, regardless of the challenges life presents. Altruism, when practiced daily, strengthens this emotional control as it trains us to act with generosity and compassion, not because we expect something in return, but because it is a wise and virtuous choice. Forgiveness and compassion have a powerful impact on personal and collective well-being. When we forgive, we promote peace not only in our personal relationships, but also create a more harmonious and healthy environment around us. This impact is visible in the workplace, where an atmosphere of understanding and forgiveness can transform a team's dynamics, making it more collaborative and productive. Furthermore, by practicing forgiveness, we contribute to the creation of a more just and empathetic world, where people help each other grow and heal. The practice of daily forgiveness is simple, yet profoundly transformative. Every day we have opportunities to release resentments, forgive, and practice altruism. It may be a small action, like reaching out to help someone or letting go of a past grievance. This daily habit strengthens our ability to live with more inner peace and cultivate healthier, more rewarding relationships. Forgiveness doesn't need to be complicated or elaborate. It starts with a sincere intention to heal and improve the environment around us, one step at a time. Seneca, always attentive to opportunities for practicing kindness, teaches us that life offers countless chances to act with generosity. For him, the greatest privilege was living according to virtue. By helping others, we contribute to our own spiritual growth. Altruism, for Seneca, was not just a virtue, but a way to find true happiness. With every opportunity to do good, we strengthen our inner peace and our connection with others. Forgiveness and altruism have a profound impact not only on our personal relationships, but also on building a more compassionate and just world. By choosing to forgive, live with empathy, and act selflessly, we create a more harmonious environment where everyone can thrive. The daily practice of altruism not only brings joy and peace to the individual, but also contributes to the creation of a more supportive society, where forgiveness and compassion are driving forces for collective well-being. The pursuit of inner peace is a continuous journey that requires practice, discipline, and self-awareness. Stoic principles offer a path to achieving serenity and harmony, even in the face of life's challenges. Each Stoic practice is not just a technique, but a way of living more consciously, aligned with our deepest values. Acceptance is an essential pillar for maintaining inner peace. By accepting life's circumstances without resistance or frustration, we live in greater harmony with our surroundings. Stoicism teaches us that what is beyond our control must be accepted with serenity. Acceptance does not mean passivity, but a deep understanding that resisting what we cannot change feeds anxiety and anger. By aligning ourselves with the natural flow of life, we accept what comes calmly, allowing us to act more effectively and consciously. Letting go of judgment and prejudice is another fundamental method for achieving greater lightness. Our natural tendency is to judge others based on our own expectations. This judgment creates anger and frustration, undermining our inner peace. Stoic practice teaches us to view people and situations with more understanding, moving away from automatic reactions and allowing more empathy. By abandoning judgment, we see the world more objectively and compassionately, creating space to live with more emotional freedom and lightness. The practice of self-control, especially through non-reactivity, is a powerful method for maintaining inner peace. By becoming aware of our reactions, we can pause before reacting impulsively. Anger and other negative emotions can be controlled when we choose to reflect before acting. Seneca reminds us, we are not disturbed by things, but by our opinions about them. By mastering our reactions, we transcend destructive emotions and live with more serenity, regardless of external circumstances. Non-reaction is also an important aspect of self-control. Instead of giving in to anger or frustration, we can consciously choose not to react. Silence is often the best response to situations that would otherwise disturb our balance. Non-reaction is not passivity, but an active choice not to feed negative emotions, preserving our inner peace and avoiding unnecessary conflicts. Finally, joy and compassion arises as a gift both for ourselves and others. When we practice altruism, helping others without expecting anything in return, we experience an inner satisfaction that goes beyond external rewards. Compassion is not just an act of kindness, but a way to deeply connect with others, creating a cycle of generosity and gratitude. Stoicism teaches us that true well-being does not come from possessions or material success, but from the ability to act with virtue and contribute to the common good. By embracing compassion, we find joy in the simplicity of helping others, creating a more meaningful and purposeful life. In summary, Stoic methods for maintaining inner peace are interconnected and reinforce each other. Acceptance, letting go of judgment, practicing non-reactivity, and finding joy and compassion are not just philosophical principles, but practical ways of living that help us deal with life's difficulties with more balance and tranquility. Adopting these practices in everyday life not only protects our inner peace, but also creates a more harmonious and compassionate environment around us. We have reached the end of our journey through the 7 methods for achieving inner peace and mastering our emotions. Stoicism offers us more than theories. It gives us concrete practices that can transform our lives. Each of these methods is a key to unlocking a state of serenity that can accompany us, no matter the external adversities. By embracing acceptance, you begin to live in harmony with the flow of life. By letting go of judgments, you free yourself from the weight of prejudice and find more lightness. By letting go of control, you find the freedom to simply be. Taking responsibility for your emotions, you gain the power to control your reactions to situations. And by cultivating non-reactivity, you move closer to true inner peace. In the end, compassion becomes the greatest gift you can offer to yourself and the world around you. If you found this content valuable, don't forget to like the video. Your support helps spread these powerful teachings. Share this video with someone you believe needs this transformation, and don't forget to subscribe to receive more videos like this. Leave your thoughts in the comments about the methods that resonated most with you. I want to know, which of these methods will you apply in your life to maintain inner peace? Comment with the phrase, "I choose serenity." Thank you for watching until the end, for committing to transform your life, and for being here. See you in the next video.